I know it's been raining. I know everything around your house is wet on the soil, and you're having to wipe your feet off when you come in. But trust me, the dry season is right around the corner. And I asked our first guest today, Randy Hargrave, about a year ago. I said, Randy, when's the best time to have you on the show to talk about foundation repair and when people should be calling you? And he said 3 months ago. So I decided this year to call him early and not wait until it's already dry outside. So welcome to the show, Randy Hargrave with Hargrave and Hargrave Foundation Repair. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Alex.
That's
How
great.
are you?
I'm really good, really good. And you've been in business, your family's been in business for a couple of years. Give us a brief,
Yes.
Give our audience a brief history of how long you guys have been around.
It was in 1968,
Wow.
Alex, that my dad and my brother started the foundation company, and I was in high school at the time. And then when I got out, then we've been around since then, and word of mouth, and just built the reputation of doing a good job, honest day's work for honest day's pay.
Well, of course, I've used Hargrave and Hargrave for years, and there's no one else I would call, quite honestly. Even if I'm doing a foundation for you builders and homeowners, even if I'm doing a new foundation, a lot of times I'll call Randy and say, okay, this is what they've engineered. Or if they've engineered beams, not beams, but piers into the foundation, I'll almost always ask the engineer if helical piers are a good substitute, and engineers love helical piers. So let's talk a minute. I want to talk for a little bit about foundation repair, because that's what you specialize in. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how people are calling you on their new foundations now as well. When should a homeowner call you for foundation repair? What are they going to look at on a crack in a wall or something in their house and go, boy, I better call Randy?
Yeah, when they start seeing cracks on the brick cracks on the outside perimeter, or doors that are misaligned on the inside, door sticking, the gap at the top of the door is wider on one side, like the hinge side. It'll be the same, but the striker side will be wider or tighter. And so when they see that and they just feel like there's something wrong, then they give us a call, and then our secretaries will line up a schedule for them.
So if you feel like you're walking downhill, like you're walking across the bedroom, and you're like, man, all of a sudden I feel like I'm going downhill.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good time. Or uphill.
Or if their child drops a ball and it all of a sudden it rolls to the wall.
It rolls to the other side of the house.
So
I actually have a couple of friends, and I did it for years, that would keep ping pong balls with us. And when we'd go and look at a house, if we were going to do a remodel or an addition or something, we'd actually just drop a little ping pong ball on there and see what happens.
See which way it rolls.
Is absolutely the easiest way to tell if something's not quite level.
That's right. Or your door automatically swings open when you try to shut it,
Right.
and it swings back the other
It doesn't
direction.
necessarily mean the house is haunted. It
That's
could
right.
be just out
It
of
could be,
level.
depends on who lived there before it, whether it was haunted or not. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Helical piers, which is what you specialize in, are really unique. They're like a big wood screw that goes in the dirt. Explain to us exactly, and we've got a picture of some helical piers that we're going to pop up real quick. Explain to us exactly what a helical pier is and the process to get it in.
Okay. Well, the helical pier is a disc that's cut at an angle around like a screw. And as it screws itself in the ground, we have a torque indicator on our machine or a gauge inside the machine, and we put it into torque. And we keep adding extensions, as you see there, we keep adding extensions to it to get it to the right torque. Because your engineers will say, well, we need a 25 kips here.
So torque is resistance.
Yeah, torque would be a resistance, like putting torque on a head bolt on a motor. All right, you put that torque, or your lug bolts down, they put them on torque.
Or anytime you're screwing something with a screwdriver or torque is
Right.
the amount of pressure
pressure.
it takes to turn it.
That's right.
And so when you get to a certain resistance, then you're what? How do you know?
Well-
What are we getting to?
Well, we're getting into a good soil. Basically, you want to get below the active soil in the Metroplex. And 9 times out of 10, it's around anywhere from 12 to 20 feet. You get past that, so you keep adding extensions until you reach that designated torque. And that's given to you by the engineer most time. On a residential, like a remedial that
So
we're doing,
excuse me. So the engineer will say, Randy, I want it to have X amount of pounds
Right.
of torque, and then we've reached our goal.
that would be for the new construction or swimming pools that we do. Just for remedial, we put them into a natural 25 kips.
So when we were doing all we did for years were concrete piers, and we would dig down until we saw a change in
Change of
soil.
soil.
And the engineer would say, well, if it's blue, it's this. If it's white, it's this. If it's
Right.
white, keep going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Or often we hit water. I've hit water as shallow as 13 feet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then you
And
have
so
to case
you have to just case it or try and get under it, or stay on top of it.
Yeah, one of the two, because your soil is not just level underneath your subsoil. It's up and down. So each pier, like a concrete pier, you're going to drill them all 15 feet.
Right.
So some places may hit real good soil, other places may not. With the helix, every pier is a different depth.
Because it goes down to that resistance.
It goes into that
That's,
resistance.
can you send that through that wet soil
Yeah.
without having to case it?
Yes, you sure can. We
Yeah.
got them in fishing piers in San Antonio and Frisco, where they go out and they're in the water all the time.
You just keep going down till you get
Until you get the
it
torque.
doesn't matter.
That's right.
And so basically what you end up with is this steel rod that's coming up through the ground.
Yep.
And that's essentially what everything sits on.
Yeah.
So is that as stout or hold up as well as a pier that's 10 inches in diameter, a concrete pier?
Comparable, yeah. Oh, yeah. If there's a house like a new construction and they had concrete spec'd for 15 feet and they're hitting water, then they call me, then I can put them in at the same time, the same distance apart, one for one, and we'll put them into the torque that they need. And that may go deeper than 15 because I've got to reach my torque.
It's got to go to where it goes, right?
And
So
so
like you're saying, instead of everything being 20, which is what I've done for years, you know,
Right.
it's like, okay, because I get the quote from the concrete guy as the builder. The quote is X amount of 20-foot piers or
Right.
whatever they need to be. And now, one other thing that is along those lines is a good question, I think, is when you do a soil survey, before you do a foundation, you do a soil survey where they come out and they basically drill a hole down in the soil and they actually locate that soil, that subsoil that you're trying to reach, whether it's clay or they'll tell you if there's rock or water, whatever it is. Is that required with a helical, or can you just go down to where you hit?
I got some builders and some engineers that I deal with want me to go do a probe test. So I'll go out to that lot that they're going to build on, and I'll run a probe test, and I'll monitor every foot the torque. And then I take that and I give it back to the builder or the
So
engineer.
it's kind of the same thing, but not
Like
for
a
a
soil
10-inch.
Right.
It's not for concrete, but for the.
and then I can give
it's
them a
interesting.
firm price as to what it is, either the square shaft or round shaft pipe pier.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
So,
How long have helical piers been around?
well, the Chance helical pier has been around since the 1900s or earlier.
Wow.
When A.B. Chance designed and built them. We have been doing the helical pier since 1988, probably longer than anybody in the Metroplex.
And one of the things that I had you do first, and probably one of the reasons I called you in the 90s, was because we had to put some piers inside a house in a pier and it was a pier and beam house.
Right.
So we had the wood floor taken out and everything, but we had to get piers in there.
Right.
And of course they called, well, you're going to hand dig a pier. Well, if I hand dig 5 foot deep or as deep as I can get concrete pier, that's nothing if you have movement down there. It just doesn't reach it.
Doesn't reach
So
it.
talk to us about how you can get these. It's fascinating how you do this.
Yeah, we go inside the house, and you'll just give us right next to the seal, the wood seal, and we'll cut the hole. We'll put the pier in. Right next to it, then we have what they call a beam seat bracket, and that beam seat bracket will slide over the pier, and we rotate it around. Usually, the carpenter does that, and then they dial in to they jack.
Your machine that you use though is what fascinates me.
It's we got two now. We got a handheld that we do it the old-fashioned way, that you have to pick it up and do it all by hand. Now we got one. If the floor's stout enough, then we've got a walk-behind bobcat.
Oh, really?
That'll go through a 36-inch door that we can go in and install the piers by that. But still, mostly on pier and beams, we do it by hand. I don't trust the floor.
We've had, yeah, right. But we've had, I've seen some pictures of your machine where it actually sticks inside through a window.
Yeah, we've done that. We call it a stinger. We put the stinger on the bobcat, and we can line up through that window and shoot that thing right through that window.
That's
and install
amazing.
them.
That's amazing. Because a lot of times you may not realize it, but your house foundation, here's what happens with your foundation in Texas. First of all, Randy, how many different soil conditions?
There's all kinds. You got a potential vertical rise from 0 to 12 to 0 to 2.
Right.
So you got really expansive soil in the Metroplex. We're blessed with expansive soil.
Yeah, right. You're blessed with expansive soil.
You may be right there.
We've got, but what'll happen is the soil will dry out. So when we have a drought during the summer, the soil doesn't just dry out around the perimeter of the house. The soil dries out underneath the house. And the longer the drought goes, the deeper it dries out. So the moisture that's normally trapped under your house, supporting that expansive soil where we want it, is now way down. Now, because when we put these foundations in, we calculate in the amount of moisture in the soil. And so when that soil dries out and it gets down to even the water table, which it'll do, it starts shrinking underneath your house and losing support. Now, most foundations can handle most of that,
right?
But for some reason, a lot of them don't. They'll have a weak spot in them, or they'll have an old tree underneath them that rotted out and makes a void. And for whatever reason, it can just be a load where it's carrying a load-bearing wall, but it's suspended now. Where it was supported before, now it may have a big gap.
Underneath.
Yeah, and that's where Randy comes in, and I guess on a slab you would have to just knock a hole in it, and
if it's on the interior, we cut it in. We don't like going inside houses and doing it, but that's the way we do it. We try to locate. We don't try. We do. We locate the transition beams or the interior beams if you have to go inside. Normally, probably 90% of the time, the perimeter of the 8 foot from the outside wall in is what settles. Unless you got a water leak or something.
It seems like in the 90s, probably, we started getting a lot more serious about our engineering on concrete slabs. Now, if you have a house that was built pre-95, if you have a house that's 30 years old, 35 maybe, you have a house that, if it's a slab, that was likely the beams and everything were just sort of done by the concrete guy. He just went, we just put in, it's 12 inches wide, and it's 12 inches deep. It's as deep as a shovel will get.
That's right. That's about right.
That's how they did it. And they didn't even particularly spend a lot of time putting a lot of steel in it and stuff like that. And so when you have an older house like that, the effect of that drought is a whole lot different than a newer. Nowadays, we have an engineered foundation that's got big beams, lots of steel. It's all planned out for worst case scenario, right?
They do.
But things still happen.
That's right. And they do it. And then I looked at a job the other day, and the builder doesn't like piers. He likes soil injection and select fill. Well, why are you calling me out now that I'm going to have to put piers in your? So why not go ahead and put piers in your house when you do whether it's concrete or helix? Put them in before, to do everything to support your foundation, because that's your major investment.
So soil injection is where they go and they take the expansive soil and they inject something in it.
Some kind of a chemical to repel the water. Yeah.
It kills all the microbes in it.
Right.
And so it can't expand.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific science. I'm sure it works fine. I've never done it because I trust peers. Because I know it can be fixed later, but it's you're messing with Mother Nature when you're starting to do that stuff.
Yeah, because I've worked on them that's been soil injected, so it don't matter. It really don't.
What kind of warranty do people get with a helical pier?
Well, our warranty is a 6-year. It's the first 6 years. Any movement will come back and readjust it at no cost. After that, then we will come back and readjust it just for like 20% of the original cost, just to cover our labor and gas. And our warranty is to the house as long as the house is there. I don't care how many times it sells. I don't care what happens.
So it
to
transfers from owner to owner.
Yeah, we don't even, there's no, it's just there.
Now, I have seen, and we've all seen in this business, and particularly in this area, all kinds of foundation repair companies.
Warranties, yeah.
And the foundation repair companies have had some very imaginative ways of supporting or adding these piers. And it used to be that we just had a crew of guys go out and dig a bunch of holes around. A lot of them still do that.
They do.
And I'm not.
If they're working on Saturday, then they're bootlegging it.
Yeah.
Probably, because they can't get inspection.
Right. Now, are the cities requiring inspections now on
No,
foundation
most of them they
repair?
just want a letter from the engineer.
So, if I know of a couple of houses that I've seen over the years that have had to have the foundation warranty people come out almost yearly and adjust them because they put in these concrete cylinders. What they are is they're boring. So I guess that's how it started. There's boring cylinders.
That's where they started them. And you can do that. You can get everything you want to do foundation yourself at Home Depot.
Right.
If you want to.
And here's the problem though. It's loose.
Yeah.
And so the soil doesn't stay consistent. I mean, it's put in a way that I've never allowed it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't dig down and at least have a concrete pier, and then of course when I learned about helical, it was just a no-brainer for me. I was like, why would you even do it any other way? But the most important part of foundation repair is the engineering.
Right. That is. And, you said something about, we did concrete for 20-something years, drilled concrete piers. And when we started with the Helix, our warranty cut to less than 1% of every job we do.
Wow.
And on your warranties, if you use someone else, be sure to check the transfer. Because if you don't transfer them within 30 days, warranty's void.
Wow.
On a lot of people.
They
need to check that.
One of the things I loved about the helical, I felt like I could put kind of as many of them as I needed in there.
Yeah.
It was sort of like so when they're fixing your foundation on your home, what they should be doing, and I think most of them are pretty good about it, is they'll lift part of it and then they'll check it. Then they'll lift another part, and then they'll decide if they, how to go through that process to achieve what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Now, how many houses have you ever been on that are actually level?
You'll never get one back perfectly level. You'll just not be able to do that because there's debris, there's nails pulled, so you'll not be able to get to that point to where it's fully level.
I mean, once it's lifted and rocks have fallen down under it, it can't go down any further. What are realistic expectations for a homeowner that are going to have their foundation?
Okay. Realistically is your outside brick cracks, they should close, separation around the windows should close, doors, and you never want to bring it back up past that point. And because every house is not poured perfectly level anyway. And when you shoot elevations are just relevant. No one knows where a perfect zero is. So when you get to that point, you just try to use common sense.
You're using those elevations as a baseline.
Yeah, as a baseline.
Right.
But it's crazy when you get in and you see -3, and then you look at the the homeowner, they say, wow, my house is 3 inches low. That's just relative. We don't know where the perfect zero is.
Yeah, right.
And so I said, don't let the elevations scare you. Don't let them frighten you, but it seems to do it. So sometimes it's better, excuse me, to not even bring about the elevations to the homeowner because they go,
They start worrying about something they don't
Yeah.
need to worry about.
excuse me.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, well, I think that's fascinating. One other thing that's super important, is there really a best or worst time of year to do this, or does it just, when it shows up, address it quickly?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. If you're selling, you got to address it. We do them year round. Preferentially, I would rather do them in the springtime or when it's wet, because your Mother Nature has swelled up and moved that house as much as it could, and all you're doing is picking up just a little bit more and stabilizing it. That way, keeping it from when the dry, from July to
So you're
Lord knows, to
protecting it
November.
from the shrinking soil, not you.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
right. But we do it year round. But if I was doing my house, if I went in a hurry and I could wait, I would monitor it for 6 months, even after my elevations. Shoot elevations in the winter, in the wet, shoot elevations in the dry, and then see what it goes from
And
there.
then you have really a good
yeah.
view of what's happening with it. That's
Very few times, Alex, will go out and say, if it's really drastic, you might need to get some piers now. Or we say, watch it, call us back in 3 or 4 months. Let's reshoot it after the rain, after something to see, and kind of monitor it. Because there's hundreds of houses that we go back to 6 months later and reshoot and evaluate it. You get that benchmark and then work it that way.
right.
So
Really appreciate you coming.
welcome.
Spending
Enjoy
the
it.
morning with us. Hey, don't forget to follow us on all your social media. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe and share on YouTube. And check us out on all your social media platforms. Don't forget to watch Remodel Revolution on your smart TV, on Texas Weather Tracker TV, on Roku, Android, Apple, and Amazon TV, Sundays at 1 and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.